From the math to the mask, there's never been a fiscal update like this.
Some will criticize us on the cost of action, but our government knew that the cost of inaction would have been far greater.
The cost of COVID is enormous. The deficit now projected at $343 billion, the biggest since the Second World War. The debt projected to hit a record high of $1.2 trillion. The economic toll, the worst since the Great Depression, with the economy expected to shrink by 6.8%. The job numbers, staggering. 5.5 million Canadians have lost their jobs or most of their hours. That's 1/3 of the entire workforce.
At a time when Canadian workers and families are facing significant hardship, austerity and tightening your belt is not the answer.
But millions are tightening their belts because even after all that spending, thousands of businesses are still closed, their employees off the job. So the one new measure, $50 billion more for future changes to the wage subsidy to help companies reopen and rehire. The details still to be determined.
The Prime Minister has absolutely no plan to help Canadians return to work, no plan to guide our economic recovery.
I think we need to see a forward plan. I think the pressure should increase on the government to have a fiscal plan, a strategy for this year and next year.
What's missing here is what comes next. This update is largely backwards looking, a tally of the costs of the emergency response. But there is still a need for an economic recovery plan, which will mean billions more in new spending and new programs. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
So on that, let's bring in Rosie Barton, our chief political correspondent. Rosie, this number clearly reflects the immediate spending happening, but what about economic recovery later down the road?
Well, as David mentioned, the government will have more to tell us in the fall, for sure. But there is a desire right now inside government to talk about the urgency that still exists, because there are so many Canadians that, still have reduced work hours, aren't back to their jobs, don't know what the future holds. So they don't want to get too far down the road, if you will, until some of those things are dealt with. There's also other bits and pieces that they need to work out. They are still talking to provinces about where $14 billion is going to go and how they might be able to support childcare, for instance, because that will be critical to the economy reopening in September too. The other part of this, though, the recovery part of this, is that the government is well aware that the economy is not just going to start spinning on its own without any help. There is going to have to be a conversation around stimulus and where to put that stimulus to try and grow their way out of this, which is what the government wants to do. It won't look like anything we've seen before, but then again, Adrienne, none of this has.
Yeah, no kidding. Huge decisions ahead.
Yeah.
Rosie, thanks very much.
Thanks.